Helena Drake grabbed the mop from Marcus Webb's hands and smashed it across his face. The wooden handle cracked against his cheekbone. Blood sprayed across the 38th floor granite. 300 employees gasped behind glass walls. Phones raised. Recording. Live streaming to the world. Marcus stumbled but didn't fall. His hand touched his split cheek, came away red. Helena threw the broken pieces at his feet. "You think you can fix my $4 million inverter? You can't even hold a mop without bleeding on my floor." His daughter's tuition was due in 6 days. His rent was 3 weeks late. His wife had been dead for 3 years. Marcus looked at the blood on his fingers, then at Helena Drake. Start the clock. What happened next would be watched by 12 million people, and by morning, one of them would lose everything. Drop your city in the comments. Let me see how far this story travels. Blood dripped from Marcus Webb's cheek onto granite that cost more than his rent. 300 faces pressed against conference room glass. 300 phones recording. 300 witnesses holding their breath. Helena Drake stood 5 feet away, still gripping half the broken mop handle. Her knuckles white. Her breathing hard. Not from effort. From rage. "Pick it up." Marcus didn't move. "I said pick it up, janitor. Pick up the mess you made on my floor." "You hit me. And I'll hit you again if you don't." "No." Marcus wiped blood from his cheek with the back of his hand. "You won't." The word landed like a grenade. Helena's eyes widened. Behind her, 300 employees went completely still. No one spoke to Helena Drake like that. No one refused Helena Drake. Not the engineers with Stanford degrees. Not the executives with corner offices. Not the board members with millions invested. Certainly not a janitor. "What did you say to me?" "I said no." Marcus's voice came out steady. Quiet. The kind of quiet that scared people more than shouting. "You can fire me. You can have security drag me out. But you don't get to hit me twice." Helena's face twisted into something ugly. She threw the broken handle at his chest. It bounced off and clattered across the floor. "Do you have any idea who I am? You're the woman who just assaulted an employee in front of 300 witnesses, and—" Marcus glanced at the glass walls, at the phones still recording, probably 200,000 people online. Helena's head snapped toward the crowd. Someone had started a live stream. The viewer count climbed as she watched. 180,000, 195,000, 210,000. For 3 seconds, something like fear flickered across her face. Then it was gone, replaced by the cold calculation that had built Drake Energy Solutions from nothing. "Eric!" She didn't turn around. "Get in here." The door opened. Eric Lawson stepped through, lead engineer, MIT graduate, the kind of man who'd never pushed a mop, or missed a meal, or wondered if his electricity would be shut off before payday. "Helena, maybe we should—" "Shut up." Her eyes never left Marcus. "I've been watching this one. Security footage. 2 weeks of him lurking outside my R&D lab at midnight, listening, watching." She smiled. "Tell me, janitor, what exactly have you been listening to?" Marcus felt his phone buzz in his pocket. His daughter Lily. She'd been texting all day about her electrical engineering midterm tomorrow. He'd promised to call her tonight, help her study. That wasn't happening now. "I asked you a question." "The inverter." The words came out before Marcus could stop them. 3 years of silence. 3 years of invisibility. And now this. "I've been listening to your solar inverter." Helena's laugh cut through the room like broken glass. "The inverter. Of course." She turned to the crowd, arms spread wide, playing to her audience. "Ladies and gentlemen, our janitor has been eavesdropping on my $4 million project, the one my Stanford and MIT engineers haven't been able to fix in 10 weeks. She spun back to Marcus. "What exactly do you think you heard, Mop Man?" "I heard it dying." Silence. "Every night when I clean this floor, I hear it struggling, fighting itself. Your engineers run the same test over and over, fails at exactly 13 minutes 47 seconds, every time. Thermal overload. Helena's smile faltered. They're looking at screens, running diagnostics, checking data. Marcus touched his bleeding cheek again. The cut was deeper than he'd thought. But they're not listening. The problem isn't software, it's frequency. 847 Hz, mismatch every 4.2 seconds. Eric stepped forward. That's not possible. Our readings show. Your readings are wrong. The room went electric. A janitor had just told an MIT engineer his readings were wrong. In front of the CEO. In front of 300 employees. In front of 250,000 people watching online. Helena recovered fast. She always did. This is perfect. She pulled out her phone. This is absolutely perfect. Eric, wake everyone up. Board members, engineers, the Korean delegation at the Hilton. Everyone. Helena, it's almost midnight. I don't care if it's 4 in the goddamn morning. Her smile had turned predatory. Our janitor thinks he's an engineer. I want the whole world to watch him prove it. Marcus's phone buzzed again while they waited for the crowd to assemble. Lily. Dad, you okay? Someone at school said Drake. Energy is live streaming something crazy. Lily. Dad. Lily. There's a video of some woman hitting a janitor. Lily. Dad, is that you? He typed back with bloody fingers. I'm fine. Situation at work. Call you later. Study for your midterm. Lily. Dad. What's happening? Lily. I'm coming there. Stay at school. I mean it. Everything's fine. Lily. You're bleeding. Lily, I saw the video. Dad, you're bleeding, Lily. Stay. At. School. I love you. Trust me. He put the phone away. His hands were shaking. Not from fear, from something else. Something that had been sleeping for 3 years. His daughter was watching. His 19-year-old daughter, sophomore at University of Illinois, studying electrical engineering because she wanted to be like him, like the man he used to be, was watching her father bleed on a live stream. Everything he'd done for 3 years, the janitor job, the night shifts, the invisibility, all of it so she wouldn't have to take loans, so she wouldn't have to struggle, so she'd have the degree he never finished. And now Helena Drake had put his blood on the internet for the world to see. The R&D lab filled in 40 minutes. 350 people in various stages of exhaustion. Suits over pajamas, hair uncombed, eyes confused. All of them staring at Marcus like he was either a savior or a sacrifice. The solar inverter sat in the center of the room. $4 million of German precision and American ambition. Chrome and titanium. Cables and sensors. A machine that had humiliated every engineer who'd touched it for 10 weeks. Helena had set up the moment like an execution. She stood at a podium, microphone in hand, the cut on Marcus's cheek already forgotten or deliberately ignored. The live stream had hit 400,000 viewers. Ladies and gentlemen, I apologize for the hour. Her voice carried false warmth. But tonight we're witnessing something historic. This man, she pointed at Marcus, is Marcus Webb, 52 years old, janitor, 3 years cleaning our toilets. Tonight, he claims he can fix what our Stanford and MIT engineers couldn't solve in 10 weeks. Dr. Raymond Cho sat in the front row. 73 years old. $80 million invested. The kind of man who'd built empires and buried competitors and never once raised his voice because he didn't need to. His eyes hadn't left Marcus since he'd walked in. So, here's what's going to happen. Helena descended from the podium, walking toward Marcus with deliberate steps. 2 hours. In front of Mr. Cho, whose patience we've tested far too long. In front of every employee who dragged themselves out of bed. In front of the entire world watching online. She stopped inches from his face. close enough that he could see the cruelty carved into every line around her eyes. "Fix the inverter, janitor. Fix it, and I'll make you head of engineering. 200,000 a year, full benefits, corner office." Her voice dropped to a whisper. The microphone still caught it. "But when you fail, and we both know you'll fail, I won't just fire you. I'll destroy you, your name, your reputation, whatever pathetic life you've scraped together." She leaned closer. "And that daughter of yours, Lily Wright, sophomore at U of I Electrical Engineering." Marcus's blood went cold. Imagine how she'll feel watching her father humiliate himself in front of 12 million people. Imagine explaining to her why Daddy's a fraud. His fists clenched at his sides. "Touch my daughter and I'll—" "You'll what?" Helena laughed. "Call the police, sue me with what money?" She turned to the crowd with theatrical flourish. "This is a man who declared bankruptcy 3 years ago, sold his business for pennies, couldn't even save his dying wife." Marcus felt something crack inside his chest. "Oh, did I touch a nerve?" Helena's smile sharpened. "Sarah wasn't it ALS horrible way to go, and you sold everything, your shop, your house, your tools, and she still died anyway. That must have been—" "Enough." The voice came from the front row. Dr. Raymond Cho had stood up. Every head in the room turned. "Mrs. Drake, you've made your point." His English was perfect, barely accented. Let the man work, or let him fail, but enough theater. Helena's jaw tightened. For a moment something dangerous flashed in her eyes. But Cho's $80 million carried weight she couldn't ignore. "Fine." She waved to Eric. "Start the clock. 2 hours." The timer on the wall began counting down. 2:00, 1:59:59, 1:59:58. Marcus walked toward the inverter on legs that felt borrowed from someone else. His cheek throbbed. His hands trembled. His daughter was watching. 400,000 strangers were watching. Helena Drake was waiting for him to fail so she could bury him. He thought about Sarah. Her hand in his at the end, thin as paper, cold as winter. "Promise me you won't give up. Promise me you'll remember who you are. Promise me you'll find your way back." 3 years. 3 years of mopping floors and emptying trash and pretending he wasn't dying inside. 3 years of being invisible because visible hurt too much. Sarah had asked him to find his way back. Maybe this was the way. Marcus placed both hands flat against the inverter's housing. "What's he doing?" someone whispered. "Praying," someone else answered. But Marcus wasn't praying. He was listening. His father had taught him this. Thomas Webb. 35 years at General Electric. The man who could diagnose any electrical problem by sound alone. The man who'd solved problems that stumped engineering teams, then watched younger men with degrees take the credit. The man who died on a garage floor at 59, still working, still invisible, still waiting for recognition that never came. Every machine has a heartbeat, son. Most people hear noise. But if you listen, really listen, the machine tells you exactly what's wrong. Marcus listened. The inverter hummed beneath his palms. $4 million of precision engineering screaming in a language most people couldn't hear. There. The frequency mismatch at 847 Hz. The subtle stutter every 4.2 seconds. The cascade of micro-failures building like pressure before an explosion. "There," Marcus said. "There what?" Eric demanded from his diagnostic station. 847 Hz, every 4.2 seconds. You hear that stutter? Eric checked his monitors. "Our readings show normal operation." "Your readings are wrong." Marcus pulled a worn notebook from his back pocket. His father's notebook pages filled with 40 years of electrical observations, margins covered in Marcus's own cramped handwriting from 2 weeks of midnight study. "Your diagnostic software is calibrated for American standards, but these solar cells were manufactured in Munich. German engineering, metric precision." He showed them the math. The frequency regulation system expects 50 Hz grid standard. Your control unit expects 60 Hz. Different tolerances. The system reads 847.3 Hz output. Your software rounds to 847. That's a 0.035% error. Eric frowned. That's negligible. By itself. But this inverter has 63 interconnected systems. Each one compounds the error. By the time signals reach the main computer, you've got cascading failures. Marcus traced a line in his notebook. 13 minutes, 47 seconds. That's when the accumulated heat exceeds what the cooling system can handle. Emergency shutdown. The room had gone silent. Dr. Cho spoke from the front row. You calculated this yourself from listening. From watching. From 2 weeks of cleaning this floor while your engineers went home. Marcus met the old man's eyes. My father taught me. Machines speak to those who know how to listen. Something flickered across Cho's weathered face. Recognition. Memory. Something that looked almost like pain. Helena's voice cut through the moment. Very impressive. You've identified the problem. But any idiot can point at something and say it's broken. She crossed her arms. Can you actually fix it? Marcus reached into the diagnostic kit, pulled out a component, brushed aluminum, size of a hockey puck. This. Helena stared. That's a $70 part. 72, frequency bridge adapter. Instead of reprogramming everything or replacing German components with American ones, we add a translator. The implications crashed through the room. You're telling me... Helena's voice rose cracking with disbelief. That a $72 part could have solved a problem that's cost me $4 million and 10 weeks. Marcus met her eyes. Complicated problems don't always need complicated answers. Sometimes you just need to help two systems understand each other. He turned back to the inverter. My father used to say that. The installation took 17 minutes. Marcus's hands moved with precision that surprised even him. Muscle memory from 10,000 repairs, from the shop he'd built in Detroit, from the life he'd lived before Sarah got sick and everything fell apart. Remove the sensor housing, install the adapter, recalibrate connection points, test signal flow. His phone buzzed 3 times. Lily. He ignored it. When he stepped back, the clock showed 1:41:33. 18 minutes and 27 seconds used. Ready for testing. The room held its breath. The live stream had hit 1.2 million viewers. Helena's face had gone pale beneath her makeup. Her certainty was cracking. The janitor wasn't fumbling, wasn't panicking, was working with the quiet confidence of someone who'd done this 10,000 times before. Start it, Marcus said. Eric looked at Helena. She nodded once sharp. His hand moved to the power switch. The inverter hummed to life. Marcus closed his eyes, listened with his father's ears. The stutter was gone. The desperate fighting rhythm that had plagued the machine for 10 weeks had been replaced by something smooth, harmonious. The sound of a heartbeat finally beating right. Temperature stable, Eric reported. His voice shook. Frequency optimal, output perfect. 1 minute, 2 minutes, 5 minutes. The inverter purred. 8 minutes, 9, 10. Helena grabbed the edge of a table. 11 minutes. The room stopped breathing. 11 minutes, 30 seconds. Someone whimpered. 11 minutes, 45 seconds. 12 minutes. 12:30. 13 minutes. 13 minutes, 47 seconds. The inverter kept running. 14 minutes. 15 minutes. 16 minutes. The room exploded. Engineers shouted. Employees cheered. Someone burst into tears. The live stream comments scrolled so fast they became a blur of exclamation points and disbelief, and the same question repeated 1,000 times. Who is this guy? But Marcus didn't celebrate. He stood beside the inverter, one hand on its warm surface, feeling the steady heartbeat of a machine finally doing what it was designed to do. Tears ran down his face, not because of the victory, not because of the crowd, because his father had been right, because Sarah had been right, because his daughter was watching, and she would finally know that her father wasn't just a janitor. He was an engineer. He'd always been an engineer. He'd just forgotten for a while. Dr. Raymond Cho rose from his chair. The applause died as he walked toward Marcus. 73 years old, $80 million, a lifetime of watching men succeed and fail. He stopped in front of Marcus, studied his face with eyes that had seen everything. Your father, Thomas Webb, General Electric. Marcus's heart stopped. How do you know that name? Because I met him. 1987. I was a young executive building what would become Cho Industries. The old man's voice carried weight. We had a problem that stumped our entire engineering team. Your father solved it in 4 hours. We offered him 3 times his salary to come to Seoul. He never told me that. He refused. Cho's eyes glistened. Said he couldn't leave Detroit. Said he had a son who needed him. Marcus felt the floor shift beneath his feet. All those years, all those nights watching his father come home exhausted from a job that never recognized him. And he'd turned down a fortune for Marcus, for his son, for his... He was a great man, your father. Cho placed one hand on Marcus's shoulder. The world's failure to acknowledge him was a tragedy, but tonight his son received the recognition he deserved. The applause started again, louder this time. 350 people cheering for a janitor who'd just done the impossible. Helena Drake stood frozen at her podium. The hunter had become prey. The woman who'd built an empire on fear watched it crumble in real time. Watched her employees applaud the man she'd tried to humiliate. Watched her investors witness her failure. Her eyes found Marcus across the room. He saw something there he'd never expected. Fear. Helena Drake, CEO of Drake Energy Solutions, terror of Silicon Valley, destroyer of careers, was afraid. Not of losing the company, not of losing money, not of losing power. She was afraid of him, of what he represented, of what he'd proven, of what it meant for everything she'd built on the foundation of fear and control, and the absolute conviction that people like Marcus Webb didn't matter. She slipped toward the exit. Mrs. Drake? Cho's voice stopped her cold. We need to discuss the terms of our continued partnership. Helena turned. The mask struggled to reassemble itself. Of course, Mr. Cho. I'll have my assistant schedule now. The word carried the weight of $80 million. We discuss now. Marcus's phone buzzed. Lily. Dad. Lily. Dad. I saw everything. Lily. I'm crying. Lily. You did it. Lily. I'm so proud of you. He typed back with trembling fingers. I love you, sweetheart. Go study for your midterm. I'll call you in the morning. Lily. Forget the midterm. I just watched my dad save a $4 million project with a $72 part. Lily. That's worth more than any test. Lily, I love you, Dad. Lily. Mom would be so proud. Marcus stared at those words until they blurred. Mom would be so proud. He looked up at the ceiling, through it, through 38 floors of steel and glass, up to wherever Sarah was watching. I found my way back, he whispered. I finally found my way back. The clock on the wall read 12:47 a.m., 93 minutes ahead of schedule. Outside, Chicago slept. Inside, Marcus Webb was visible again. But what he didn't know, what no one in that room knew, was that Helena Drake had already made a phone call, and the next 48 hours would make tonight look like a warm-up. Marcus didn't sleep that night. He sat in his apartment, a one-bedroom unit 20 minutes outside Chicago, $950 a month, that consumed half his paycheck, and watched the sun come up through windows he hadn't cleaned in 6 months. His cheek throbbed where Helena had hit him. The cut had stopped bleeding, but would probably scar. His phone had died around 4 a.m. He hadn't plugged it in. Didn't want to see the notifications. Didn't want to read the comments or the messages or whatever the world had decided about Marcus Webb, the janitor who fixed a $4 million inverter with a $72 part. The coffee maker gurgled. Cheap instant coffee that tasted like punishment. He'd been drinking the same brand for 3 years because it cost $4.99 for a can that lasted 2 weeks. His refrigerator held eggs, bread, a half-empty jar of peanut butter, and a carton of milk that might have expired yesterday. He couldn't remember. On the shelf by the window sat 2 photographs. Sarah on their wedding day, 27 years old, laughing at something he'd said right before the camera clicked. And Lily, at her high school graduation, holding her diploma like a trophy, grinning so wide it hurt to look at. Both of them believed in him. Sarah until the day she died. Lily still. Marcus didn't know if he believed in himself yet. The knock on his door came at 7:15 a.m. He wasn't expecting anyone. Didn't have friends who visited. Didn't have family except Lily, and she was 3 hours away at school. He opened the door. Dr. Raymond Cho stood in the hallway. 73 years old, immaculate suit. The kind of man who probably hadn't knocked on a door himself in 30 years. "Mr. Webb, may I come in?" Marcus stepped aside without a word. What else could he do? Cho walked into the apartment. His eyes swept across the second-hand furniture, the bare walls, the stack of bills on the kitchen counter that Marcus had been ignoring for weeks. If the old man was judging him, his face didn't show it. "You haven't slept?" "No. Neither have I." Cho turned to face him. "I've been on the phone with my attorneys for 3 hours, and with Helena Drake's board of directors for 2. Marcus felt something cold settle in his stomach. What's happening? "She's trying to destroy you." The words hit like a punch. Marcus had expected it. Helena's threat had been clear, but hearing it confirmed made it real. How? She called her media contacts at 2 a.m. By 6 a.m., 3 news outlets had stories ready to publish. Cho pulled out his phone, showed Marcus the screen. Disgraced mechanic fakes engineering credentials at Drake Energy. Bankrupt con man tricks investors with lucky fix. Single father's desperate scheme exposed. Marcus stared at the headlines. His hands started shaking. "They're calling it fraud. She found your bankruptcy records, your failed business, a lawsuit from 8 years ago. That lawsuit was bogus. Customer blamed me for damage he caused himself. I settled because fighting would have cost more than paying." "I know." Cho pocketed his phone. "But Helena doesn't care about truth. She cares about narrative. And the narrative she's building is that you're a fraud who got lucky, who has no real credentials, who should never have been allowed near her equipment." Marcus walked to the window, looked out at Chicago waking up, people going to work, living normal lives, having no idea that his was falling apart. "What about the inverter?" "It works. I fixed it. Everyone saw." Everyone saw a janitor touch some equipment for 17 minutes. Helena's story is that the real fix happened earlier, that her engineers solved the problem, and you simply happened to be there when they tested it. Cho's voice carried disgust. "She's already coaching Eric Lawson on what to say. Eric knows that's a lie. Eric owes her $230,000. Marcus turned. "What?" "Gambling debts. 3 years ago, he nearly lost everything. His house, his retirement, his daughter's college fund. Helena paid it off. Didn't ask for repayment." Cho met Marcus's eyes. "She asked for loyalty. He's been her puppet ever since." The revelation crashed through Marcus like a wave. Eric's uncomfortable silence last night. His reluctance to challenge Helena. His careful avoidance of Marcus's eyes when the engineers were celebrating. He wasn't weak. He was owned. "So what do I do?" Marcus heard the desperation in his own voice. "She's got money, lawyers, media contacts. I've got a 1-bedroom apartment and $83 in my checking account." Cho smiled. It transformed his face, made him look younger, sharper, almost dangerous. You have something she doesn't, Mr. Webb. You have me. Marcus didn't understand. Why? You barely know me. You've got $80 million invested with Helena, not with some janitor who... your father. The words stopped Marcus cold. I told you last night. I met Thomas Webb in 1987. What I didn't tell you was what happened after. Cho walked to the photographs on the shelf, picked up Sarah's wedding picture, studied it for a long moment. Your father solved our problem in 4 hours, saved my company millions. I offered him everything: money, position, respect. He refused. Because of me. Because of you. Cho set down the photograph. But that's not why I'm here. I'm here because of what he said when he refused. Marcus waited. He said, Mr. Cho, my son is going to change the world someday. I need to be there to see it. The old man's voice softened. I never forgot those words. I watched for your name over the years. Saw you build your business in Detroit. Saw you succeed. Then saw you disappear. Sarah got sick. I know everything, Mr. Webb. The cancer, the bills, the bankruptcy, the 3 years you've spent invisible. Cho turned to face him. Your father believed you would change the world. Last night you started. I won't let Helena Drake stop you. Marcus felt tears threatening, pushed them down. He'd cried enough last night. What are you proposing? War. The word hung in the air. Helena thinks she can destroy you with media stories and legal threats. She's wrong. I've spent 50 years building relationships with people more powerful than she can imagine. Journalists who owe me favors. Attorneys who would love nothing more than to take down a CEO who assaults employees on camera. Cho's eyes hardened. But more importantly, I have proof that Helena Drake has been falsifying reports for years. Government contracts with inflated success rates. Safety violations that were never reported. Financial records that don't match what she's told investors. Marcus's heart pounded. Where? Her private server, in her office. Everything she's ever wanted to hide stored in a locked cabinet behind her desk. And you want me to get it? No. Cho shook his head. I want you to let her think she's winning. Let her publish her stories. Let her destroy your reputation. Let her believe she's already won. Why? Because Helena Drake has one weakness. Pride. She can't resist gloating. Can't resist rubbing her victory in her opponent's face. Cho smiled again, cold and calculating. When she thinks she's destroyed you, she'll get careless. She'll make a mistake. And when she does, we'll be ready. Marcus looked at the old man, this billionaire who'd shown up at his door at 7 a.m. to offer him war against one of the most powerful women in Chicago. Why are you really doing this? It's not just because of my father. Cho was quiet for a long moment. I have a granddaughter, 22 years old, brilliant engineer. Last year she applied for a position at Drake Energy. Helena rejected her because, and I quote, she didn't have the right look for our corporate culture. His voice turned to ice. My granddaughter is Korean, Mr. Webb. Helena Drake rejected her because of her race, then hired a white woman with half her qualifications. Cho's hands clenched at his sides. I've been waiting for an opportunity to destroy Helena Drake for 18 months. You just gave it to me. Marcus understood now. This wasn't just about him. This was about revenge. About a grandfather protecting his granddaughter. About a billionaire settling scores. He should have been worried about being used. Should have been cautious about becoming a pawn in someone else's war. But Helena Drake had hit him in the face with a mop handle. Had threatened his daughter. Had dug up his dead wife's name and thrown it in his face like garbage. What do you need me to do? Cho's smile widened. First we wait. Let her think she's winning. Let her stories publish. Let the world believe you're a fraud. He pulled a business card from his pocket, pressed it into Marcus's hand. Then when the moment is right, I'll call you, and we'll end her. He walked to the door, stopped with his hand on the knob. "One more thing, Mr. Webb. Your daughter." Marcus's blood went cold. "What about her?" "Helena knows about her, knows where she goes to school, knows what she's studying." Cho's voice carried warning. "She's already sent people to dig into Lily's life, looking for anything she can use. If she touches my daughter, she won't. I've already arranged protection, people watching Lily's apartment, following her to class." Cho met Marcus's eyes. "Your daughter will be safe, Mr. Webb. I promise you that." He opened the door, stepped through. "Get some sleep, eat something. The next few days are going to be difficult." Then he was gone. Marcus stood alone in his apartment, holding a billionaire's business card, wondering how his life had changed so completely in less than 12 hours. His phone. He needed to charge his phone, needed to call Lily, needed to hear her voice. He plugged it in, waited for it to boot. 47 missed calls, 312 text messages, 18 voicemails, and 1 email from Helena Drake sent at 3:47 a.m. Mr. Webb. By the time you read this, the first stories will already be published. By tomorrow, no one will remember you as the janitor who fixed an inverter. They'll remember you as the fraud who got caught. You have one chance to make this go away. Resign from Drake Energy this morning. Write a statement admitting you exaggerated your qualifications. Apologize publicly for wasting company resources. Do this and I'll call off the stories. Your daughter can finish her degree in peace. Your name will be forgotten instead of destroyed. Refuse, and I'll make sure every newspaper in America knows about your failed business, your dead wife, and your pathetic attempt to relive past glory. You have until noon. H. Marcus read the email 3 times. Then he deleted it. His phone rang. Lily. "Dad." Her voice was thick with tears. "Dad, I've been trying to reach you all night. Are you okay? I saw the news. They're saying..." "I know what they're saying. It's lies. It's all lies. You fixed that machine. I watched you do it. The whole world watched you do it." "I know, sweetheart." "So why aren't you fighting back? Why aren't you telling everyone the truth?" Her voice cracked. "Mom wouldn't want you to let them do this to you. She'd want you to fight." Marcus closed his eyes. His daughter, 19 years old, fierce and brilliant, and so much like Sarah it hurt to breathe. "I am fighting Lily, just not the way they expect." "What does that mean?" "It means I need you to trust me. Can you do that?" Silence on the line. Then, always Dad. "I always trust you." "Good. Now listen to me. Some people might come around asking questions. About me, about you, about our family. Don't talk to them. Don't answer questions. If anyone makes you uncomfortable, call me immediately." "Dad, you're scaring me." "I know. I'm sorry. But this is important." He gripped the phone tighter. "Helena Drake is dangerous. She's going to try to use you against me. I won't let that happen. I can take care of myself." "I know you can. But let me take care of you too. Just this once." Another silence. Then, "Okay, Dad. I love you." "I love you too, sweetheart. More than anything." He hung up, stood in his empty apartment, looked at the photographs of Sarah and Lily. 2 women who believed in him. One gone. One still fighting for him. He couldn't let either of them down. The first story published at 8:30 a.m. Marcus watched it happen on his laptop, a major Chicago news outlet, with the headline, "Drake Energy Janitor's Checkered Past Raises Questions About Viral Video." By 9 a.m., 3 more outlets had picked it up. By 10 a.m., it was trending on Twitter. By noon, Helena's deadline, the story Marcus had lived the truth of what happened in that R&D lab, had been completely rewritten. He was no longer the hero, he was the con man. Comments flooded social media. Some people defended him. They'd watched the live stream, they'd seen him work, they knew what they'd witnessed. But others turned on him with the viciousness that only the internet could produce. Always knew it was fake. No janitor could do that. Feel bad for Drake Energy. They got played by a grifter. His wife died and he went crazy. Sad, really. That last one made Marcus's hands shake. They were talking about Sarah. Strangers who'd never met her, never known her, reducing her death to a punchline in his supposed breakdown. His phone rang. Unknown number. Mr. Webb, this is Rebecca Torres from Chicago Tribune. I'm working on a story about... He hung up. It rang again. Different number. Marcus Webb, Sarah Chen Channel 7 News. We'd love to get your side of hung up. Again. Mr. Webb, this is hung up. He turned off his phone, sat in silence. Let the world tear him apart without his participation. This was the plan. Let her think she's winning. Let her get careless. But God, it hurt. Around 2 p.m. someone knocked on his door. Not Cho this time. The knock was tentative, uncertain. Marcus opened it. Eric Lawson stood in the hallway. The MIT engineer looked like he hadn't slept in days. His suit was wrinkled. His eyes were red. Can I come in? Marcus should have slammed the door. Should have told him to go to hell. This was the man who'd watched Helena assault him and said nothing. The man who was probably coaching his colleagues on how to lie about what happened. But something in Eric's face stopped him. Something broken. 5 minutes. Eric stepped inside. Looked around the apartment with the same sweeping gaze Cho had used, but his expression was different. Not neutral. Ashamed. I'm sorry. Marcus crossed his arms. For what specifically? The part where you watched your boss hit me? The part where you're helping her destroy my reputation? Or the part where you've been lying about the inverter fix? Eric flinched at each accusation. All of it. His voice came out rough. I'm sorry for all of it. Then why are you doing it? Because she owns me. Eric slumped against the wall. All pretense of professional composure gone. 3 years ago, I had a gambling problem. Lost almost everything. My retirement, my daughter's college fund. Almost lost my house. I know. Cho told me. Eric's head snapped up. Cho knows everything, apparently. Jesus. Eric ran his hands through his hair. Jesus Christ. It's over then. She'll find out I talked to you and she'll what? Destroy you. Marcus laughed, but there was no humor in it. Get in line, Eric. She's already destroying me. At least I didn't help her do it to someone else. The words hit Eric like physical blows. He sagged further, looking every minute of his 45 years. I didn't have a choice. Everyone has a choice. Easy for you to say. You don't have $230,000 in debt hanging over your head. You don't have a daughter who needs braces, and a wife who thinks you're a success, and a boss who could end your career with one phone call. You're right. Marcus stepped closer. I don't have $230,000 in debt. I have $110,000. And my wife is dead. And my daughter is putting herself through college because I couldn't afford to help her. And the only thing I had left, my integrity, my name, my reputation, your boss is currently burning to the ground. Eric couldn't meet his eyes. So don't tell me about choices, Eric. Don't tell me about pressure. I've lost everything twice now. First when Sarah died, second when Helena decided I was a threat. Marcus's voice hardened. At least when I lose standing up. Silence stretched between them. Finally Eric spoke. She has files, on her private server, proof of everything she's done, falsified reports, hidden failures, safety violations that should have shut down the company years ago. Marcus went still. I know. She keeps the password in her day planner. Third drawer left side of her desk. Changes it weekly but always writes it down. Why are you telling me this? Eric looked up. His eyes were wet. Because you're right. Everyone has a choice. He swallowed hard. And I'm tired of making the wrong one. If I go after those files and get caught, she'll know you told me. I know. She'll destroy you. She's going to destroy me anyway. Sooner or later, someone like you comes along and the whole thing falls apart. Eric straightened. Some of the broken posture fading. Might as well be now. Might as well be for something that matters. Marcus studied the man in front of him. 45 years old, MIT graduate, corner office, everything Marcus had never had. And right now he was risking all of it to do the right thing. Why now? Why not last night? Why not 3 years ago when she first got her hooks in you? Because last night I watched you stand there with blood running down your face and you didn't blink. You didn't beg. You didn't break. Eric's voice cracked. I've been breaking for 3 years. I forgot what it looked like to stand up. Marcus thought about his father. Thomas Webb. 35 years at General Electric. Passed over for promotions. Watching younger men take credit. Never complaining. Never fighting back. Dying on a garage floor with grease on his hands and recognition he never received. His father had never stood up, had never fought, had just endured year after year until his heart gave out. Marcus had sworn he'd be different, had built a business, made a name, then lost it all, and spent 3 years proving he was exactly like his father after all. Until last night. The files, Marcus said. How would I access them? Eric told him. Every detail. The layout of Helena's office, the security schedule, the server configuration, the backup systems that needed to be bypassed. By the time he finished, Marcus had memorized everything. She'll be in meetings tomorrow morning. 6:45 to 8:00. That's your window. Eric walked toward the door. Your maintenance keycard still works. I checked. Eric. The engineer stopped. What happens to you after this? I don't know. Eric opened the door. But whatever it is, at least, I'll be able to look my daughter in the eye. He left. Marcus stood alone in his apartment. Cho's business card in one hand. Eric's information burning in his brain. 2 paths forward. Wait for Cho's carefully orchestrated revenge, or take matters into his own hands. Helena's email had given him until noon to surrender. That deadline had passed hours ago. By now she thought she'd won, thought the stories were doing their damage, thought Marcus Webb was home crying into his cheap coffee. She had no idea what was coming. His phone buzzed. He'd turned it back on without thinking. Text from Lily. Dad. I just saw another story. They're saying you lied about everything, that you never even owned a business, that the bankruptcy was because of fraud. He typed back, none of it's true. You know that, I know, but other people don't. My roommate asked if I was related to that fake janitor. I wanted to scream. I'm sorry, sweetheart, this will be over soon. How is it going to be over? She's got money and lawyers and media people. We've got nothing. Marcus looked at Cho's business card, at the information Eric had given him, at the pieces of a plan starting to form in his mind. We've got the truth, Lily. And sometimes that's enough. That's what Mom used to say. Your mother was right about most things. I miss her, Dad. Me too, sweetheart. Every day. He set down the phone, walked to the window. Tomorrow morning, 6:45 a.m. Helena's office. Either he'd find the proof he needed, or he'd lose everything all over again. But at least he'd lose fighting. At least he'd lose standing up. Sarah would have wanted that. His father would have wanted that. And Lily, watching from 3 hours away defending him to roommates who called him a fraud, deserved a father who fought back. Marcus Webb had been invisible for 3 years. Tomorrow, he'd become impossible to ignore. Marcus arrived at Drake Energy at 6:32 a.m. The parking lot was nearly empty. A few early birds scattered across the executive section. Security shift change happened at 6:45. Eric had been precise about that. 13 minutes to get inside, get up to the 38th floor, and become invisible again. He'd worn his maintenance uniform. Navy blue, with the Drake Energy patch over the breast pocket. The same uniform he'd worn for 3 years. The same uniform Helena had mocked 2 nights ago, while blood ran down his face. His keycard worked. The lobby guard glanced up, saw the uniform, waved him through without a second look. Just another janitor starting his shift. Just another invisible man. Marcus had never felt less invisible in his life. The elevator hummed as it climbed. His heart pounded so hard he could hear it in his ears. 32 floors, 34, 36. His phone buzzed. Text from Cho patients. Wait for my signal. Marcus deleted it. Cho wanted to wait. Wanted to play the long game. Wanted Helena to make a mistake on her own timeline. But Marcus had seen the stories that morning. Seen his name dragged through mud by reporters who'd never met him. Seen comments calling him a fraud, a con man, a desperate single father who'd snapped after his wife died. They'd brought Sarah into it. They'd made his grief into a punchline. He was done waiting. 38. The elevator doors opened. The executive floor stretched out before him, empty, silent, the kind of quiet that only existed before the world woke up. Helena's office sat at the far end, glass walls frosted for privacy, door requiring keycard access. Maintenance had universal clearance. How else would they clean executive spaces at night? Marcus swiped his card. The lock clicked green. He pushed through. Helena's office smelled like her perfume. Something expensive that probably cost more than his monthly grocery budget. The desk dominated the space, polished mahogany, probably worth more than his car. Behind it, exactly where Eric had described, stood a locked cabinet. Marcus moved fast. No time for hesitation. Third drawer left side. The day planner sat exactly where Eric promised, leather-bound, Helena's initials embossed in gold. He flipped through pages, meetings, appointments, notes in precise handwriting. There, last Monday's page, a string of numbers and letters in the margin. Casual enough that anyone glancing wouldn't recognize it as a password. Marcus memorized the sequence, replaced the planner, turned to the cabinet. His hands were shaking. He forced them steady. The password worked. The lock clicked open. Inside, a small server hummed quietly. External hard drives, backup systems, everything Helena wanted to keep hidden from the world, stored in a locked box, in a locked office, in a building she owned. Marcus pulled the flash drive from his pocket. $12 at a gas station on the way here. His checking account was down to $71 now. He plugged it in. The download dialog appeared. Estimated time 8 minutes. The progress bar crept forward. 3%, 7%, 12%. Each percentage felt like an hour. Each second stretched into eternity. Marcus stood exposed in Helena Drake's office, committing corporate espionage, risking prison, risking everything. But he thought about Sarah, about Lily, about his father dying unrecognized on a garage floor. Some things were worth the risk. 23%. 31%. 38%. Footsteps in the hallway. Marcus froze. His blood turned to ice. The footsteps grew louder, heels clicking against tile with a rhythm he'd learned to recognize over 3 years of avoiding it. No. Not possible. She wasn't supposed to be here. Eric said she'd be in meetings until 800. The door opened. Helena Drake walked in. Time stopped. She stood in the doorway, briefcase in hand, staring at Marcus with an expression that moved through surprise toward something colder, more satisfied. Behind him, the computer showed 44%. The flash drive was visible. The open cabinet was visible. His guilt was written in every line of his body. Well, Helena's voice carried that particular tone of someone who'd just won a game they'd been playing 3 moves ahead. This is unexpected. Marcus's mind raced. Lie about why he was here. Claim he'd come to clean. Pretend the download was something innocent. Every option crumbled under the weight of obvious truth. Helena closed the door behind her. The lock clicked with the finality of a cell door. I came in early to review some files. Wanted to check on a few things before my meetings. She walked toward him, each step deliberate. Instead, I find you in my office stealing from my private server. 51%. I'm not stealing. Marcus found his voice. This is evidence. Evidence of what exactly? Falsified reports, hidden failures, defense contracts you've been lying about for years. His hands clenched at his sides. Eric told me everything. Helena's laugh was sharp enough to draw blood. Eric Chen told you about my private files. She shook her head, amusement mixing with cruelty. Oh, Marcus. Sweet, stupid Marcus. The progress bar hit 58%. Helena pulled out her phone finger, hovering over the screen. Eric Chen works for me. Has worked for me ever since I paid off his gambling debts 3 years ago. He called me the moment you hung up yesterday. Told me your whole plan. I've been waiting since 500 a.m. for you to walk through that door. The truth crashed through Marcus like a wave. Eric's sympathetic confession. His detailed instructions. His warning about getting caught. All of it performance. All of it trap. You set me up. I gave you rope. You chose to hang yourself. Helena's smile was arctic. Security is already on the way. Corporate espionage, industrial theft, unauthorized access to protected systems. My lawyers will make sure you spend the next 10 years in prison. 67%. But here's the thing, Marcus. She stepped closer. I'm not unreasonable. We can still make a deal. What kind of deal? Resign. Write a confession admitting you faked your qualifications, that you got lucky with the inverter, that you're a fraud who was trying to extort money from my company. Helena's voice turned almost gentle. Do that, and I'll drop the charges. You'll walk out of here a free man, disgraced, unemployed, but free. And if I refuse, then I destroy you. Prison, lawsuits. I'll make sure your daughter gets expelled from U of I. I'll have her investigated for academic fraud, scholarship violations, anything I can find or create. Helena's eyes glittered. By the time I'm done, Lily Webb won't be able to get a job flipping burgers. Marcus felt something crack inside his chest. Not his resolve. Something deeper. The last remaining piece of the man who'd spent 3 years hiding. You'd destroy a 19-year-old girl because her father embarrassed you. I'd destroy anyone who threatens what I've built. Helena's mask slipped. Beneath it, something ugly. Something broken. This company is my legacy, my life's work. I fought for 30 years to build something that matters, and I won't let some janitor with a lucky guess take it away from me. 73%. Marcus looked at this woman. Really looked. Saw the years of battle carved into her face. The loneliness behind the cruelty. The fear beneath the power. She wasn't evil. She was terrified. Terrified that everything she'd built could crumble. That she was one mistake away from becoming invisible like everyone else. Like him. I understand, Marcus said quietly. Helena blinked. You what? I understand why you're like this. You fought your way up in an industry that didn't want you. Men tried to push you down, tried to take credit for your work, tried to make you small. He stepped toward her. My mother went through the same thing. Secretary at Ford for 32 years. Watched men with half her talent climb past her because they wore the right suits. Helena's expression flickered. Something human breaking through. But here's what my mother learned. What my father learned. What I learned. Marcus held her gaze. Fear makes you cruel. And cruelty makes you alone. And alone is how empires fall. You think I'm afraid of being alone? Helena laughed, but it came out wrong. Too sharp. Too brittle. I've been alone my entire career. Alone is how I won. Alone is how you survived. There's a difference. 81%. Helena's phone buzzed. She glanced at it. Her face changed. Security's on their way up. You have about 90 seconds to accept my deal or spend the next decade in prison. Marcus pulled out his own phone, showed her the screen. Call connected Dr. Raymond Cho. 7 minutes, 23 seconds. Helena's face went white. He's been listening the entire time, Every word you said, every threat, every admission. Marcus kept his voice steady, though his heart was pounding hard enough to burst. I wasn't stealing your files, Helena. I was giving you rope. You chose to hang yourself. That's not, you can't. For the first time, Helena Drake looked genuinely afraid. Cho would never. Cho has been waiting 18 months to destroy you. Something about his granddaughter. Something about you rejecting her because she didn't have the right look for corporate culture. The color drained from Helena's face. That was a business decision. That was racism. And now the man with $80 million invested in your company has you on recording threatening to frame a 19-year-old girl for crimes she didn't commit. 89%. Helena lunged for Marcus's phone. He stepped back. She stumbled, caught herself on the edge of her desk, looked up at him with something raw and desperate in her eyes. Please. The word came out broken. Please, Marcus. I'll give you anything. Money. A position. I'll make you head of engineering. 7 figures. Stock options. Whatever you want. There's nothing you can give me that I want. Everyone wants something. I want my wife back. Can you give me that? Marcus's voice cracked. I want 3 years of my life back. I want to have been there when my daughter needed me instead of working midnight shifts in your building. I want my father to have gotten the recognition he deserved before he died on a garage floor. Tears streamed down his face. He didn't try to hide them. You can't give me any of that, Helena. No one can. So instead, I'll take the truth. I'll take justice. And I'll take whatever peace comes from knowing that you can't do this to anyone else. 93%. The door burst open. Security guards rushed in, followed by a man in an expensive suit, Drake Energy's chief legal counsel. Behind them, another figure. Dr. Raymond Cho, phone still pressed to his ear, face carved from stone. Mrs. Drake. The security chief stepped forward. We received an alert that your server was accessed remotely. Helena's mask tried to reassemble itself. Yes, this man broke into my office. He's been attempting to steal proprietary data. Arrest him immediately. The guards moved toward Marcus. Stop! Cho's voice cut through the chaos. No one touches Mr. Webb. Everyone froze. Cho walked into the office slowly, each step deliberate, his 73 years carried with the authority of someone who'd built empires and buried competitors and never once needed to raise his voice. Everything that concerns Drake Energy concerns me. I have $80 million invested in this company. That gives me certain rights. He looked at Marcus. Mr. Webb, would you like to explain what happened? Marcus's throat was dry. This was the moment, the point where 3 years of invisibility either ended forever or extended into a prison cell. Mrs. Drake has been falsifying reports, government contracts with inflated success rates, safety violations that should have triggered shutdown, financial records that don't match what she's told investors. He pointed at the server. The proof is right there. I was downloading it when she walked in. Helena laughed, sharp, desperate. He's lying. He's a disgraced janitor making wild accusations. I have it on recording, Helena. Cho held up his phone. Every word, every threat, including the part where you promised to destroy a 19-year-old girl if her father didn't cooperate. The blood drained from Helena's face. I also have recordings from 2 nights ago. The live stream that 12 million people watched. The part where you assaulted Mr. Webb with a mop handle. Cho's expression didn't change. And I have 3 board members on conference call right now listening to everything that's happening in this room. Helena looked at her phone. Looked at the security guards. Looked at the exit, calculating escape routes, finding them all blocked. Section 14. 3 of our investment agreement grants me access to any and all financial records upon reasonable suspicion of material misrepresentation. Cho gestured to the legal counsel. Check the server, now. The lawyer hesitated, looking at Helena for direction. Do it. Cho's voice left no room for argument. Or I make one phone call and your entire legal department is unemployed by noon." The lawyer moved to the computer, pulled the flash drive, plugged it into his laptop. The room fell silent while he scrolled through files. His face went pale. "Mr. Cho?" His voice shook. "You need to see this." For several minutes, the only sound was clicking and scrolling. Cho leaned over the laptop, his expression shifting from neutral to grim to something approaching disgust. The Nakamura contract. Reported success rate 94%. Actual success rate 58%. He looked up at Helena. 36 percentage points of falsified data. Helena said nothing. Her jaw was clenched. Her hands trembled at her sides. Government Defense Project. 3 complete failures never reported to oversight agencies. Safety violations that should have triggered immediate shutdown. Cho straightened. "Is this accurate? I want my lawyer." "You have a lawyer. He's standing right there." Cho nodded toward the legal counsel who looked like he wanted to disappear into the floor. "Is this accurate, Helena?" Her voice came out flat. Dead. "I want my lawyer." Cho nodded to the security guards. "Please escort Mrs. Drake to conference room B. She is not to leave the building until our legal team has completed a full review of these documents." The guards hesitated. Old habits, old power structures. "Now." They moved toward Helena, took her arms. She didn't fight, didn't struggle. Just looked at Marcus with eyes that held something beyond hatred, beyond fear, recognition. She saw herself in him, the fighter, the survivor, the person who'd been pushed too far and pushed back. "This isn't over," she said quietly. "You have no idea what I can do, no idea who I know." "You're right." Marcus met her gaze. "But I know who I am now, and that's enough." They led her away. The door closed. Cho exhaled slowly, looking every day of his 73 years. "Mr. Webb, I owe you an apology." Marcus blinked. "For what?" "For telling you to wait, for wanting to play the long game when you were ready to fight." The old man almost smiled. "Your father was the same way, impatient, determined, convinced he knew the right path even when everyone told him otherwise." "My father never fought, he just endured." "He fought every day, Mr. Webb, just not in ways you could see." Cho placed a hand on Marcus's shoulder. "Coming to work when they passed him over for promotions, teaching you everything he knew when the world refused to recognize him, choosing his family over fortune." Marcus felt tears threatening again. "I never knew. He never told me." "Men like your father don't burden their children with their sacrifices. They simply make them and move forward." Cho squeezed his shoulder. "He would be proud of you today. What you did took more courage than most men possess in a lifetime." The door opened. Eric Lawson stepped through, looking like he'd aged 10 years overnight. Marcus's hands clenched. You set me up. You told her everything." "I did." Eric didn't try to deny it. "I called her the moment you left my apartment. Told her exactly what I'd told you." "Then why?" "Because she needed to believe she'd won." Eric's voice cracked. "She needed to walk in here thinking she'd trapped you. Needed to gloat. Needed to threaten." He looked at Cho. "That was the plan. The real plan." Marcus turned to Cho. You knew Eric was going to..." "Eric came to me 3 months ago. Told me everything about his debt, about Helena's control, about the files on her server." Cho's expression didn't change. "We've been working together ever since, waiting for the right moment. The recording on your phone. Eric called me the moment Helena arrived this morning. I've been listening since she walked through that door." Cho held up his phone. Every admission, every threat, all of it documented. Marcus's head was spinning. "So the whole thing, Eric's confession, his guilt, his decision to help me, real." Eric stepped forward. "Everything I told you was true. The gambling, the debt, the 3 years of being her puppet." His eyes were wet. I couldn't tell you the whole plan. If you'd known, Helena would have sensed it. She would have held back. would have been careful. You needed me to believe it was real. I needed you to be real, angry, determined, ready to fight even if you lost." Eric's voice broke. "And you were. God, Marcus, you were magnificent. Standing there with blood on your face, telling her that fear makes you cruel and cruelty makes you alone." Marcus didn't know what to say. Didn't know what to feel. Anger at being manipulated. Gratitude for being saved. Confusion about which parts had been real and which had been performance. "Why me?" he finally asked. "Why did any of you choose me for this?" Cho and Eric exchanged looks. "Because you fixed the inverter," Eric said quietly. "Because you stood up when anyone else would have crumbled. Because you reminded me what it looked like to have integrity. Because your father believed you would change the world," Cho added. "And I wanted to see if he was right." Marcus looked at these two men, the billionaire and the engineer, the puppet master and the puppet who'd cut his own strings. Both of them had risked everything on him. On a janitor with a dead wife and a mountain of debt, and a daughter who believed in him. What happens now? Now we rebuild. Cho walked toward the window. Helena will face charges: fraud, assault, falsifying government contracts. The company will need new leadership, new direction. I'm not qualified to run a company. No. Cho turned back. But you're qualified to do what you've always done. Listen, diagnose, fix what's broken. He almost smiled. I'm thinking chief engineer. Starting salary $170,000. We'll discuss benefits and equity later. Marcus's legs went weak. He had to grab the edge of Helena's desk to stay upright. That's more money than I've made in the last 5 years combined. It's what you're worth, Mr. Webb. It's what you've always been worth. The world just couldn't see it. Cho extended his hand. What do you say? Marcus looked at the hand, looked at the office, looked at the server that held proof of Helena's crimes, and somehow proof of his own redemption. He thought about Sarah, about the promise he'd made, about finding his way back. He shook Cho's hand. I say yes. Marcus drove home in a daze. The morning sun was bright enough to hurt. His Civic's check engine light glared its usual accusation, but somehow it didn't bother him anymore. He'd fix it next week. He could afford to fix it now. His phone buzzed. Lily. Dad? Her voice was shaking. Dad, I just saw the news. They're saying Helena Drake was arrested. They're saying that you helped. It's true. Oh my God, she was crying now. Oh my God, Dad, I've been watching the coverage. They're calling you a hero. They're saying you exposed millions of dollars in fraud. I had help. I don't care about help. I care about you. Her voice cracked. Mom would be so proud. She'd be so proud. Marcus pulled over. He couldn't drive anymore. Couldn't see through the tears. I kept my promise, Lily. All 3 of them. What? Before your mother died, she asked me to promise 3 things. Don't give up. Remember who I am. Find my way back. Marcus's voice broke completely. I finally did it. I finally found my way back. Lily was silent for a long moment. When she spoke again, her voice was small, wondering. What does that mean for us, Dad? What happens now? Now I go back to work, not as a janitor, as an engineer. He laughed, the first real laugh in 3 years. They offered me chief engineer, sweetheart, $170,000 a year. Dad. Lily was crying again. Dad, that's... I know. Does this mean, can I come home for Thanksgiving? I haven't been able to afford the bus ticket, and I didn't want to ask. You never have to ask. I'll fly you home. First class if you want. I don't need first class, Dad. I just need you. Marcus wiped his eyes, looked up at the sky through his cracked windshield. You have me, sweetheart. You've always had me. I was just lost for a while. You're not lost anymore. No. Marcus smiled. I'm not lost anymore. He drove the rest of the way home in silence. But it wasn't the heavy silence of the past 3 years. It was something lighter, something hopeful. On his shelf, Sarah's photograph smiled at him, frozen in a moment when they'd both believed the future held promise. He touched the frame gently. "I did it, Sarah. I finally did it." The photograph didn't answer, but somehow Marcus knew. She'd heard him. 6 months changed everything. Marcus stood in the center of Drake Energy's newly renamed Advanced Engineering Center, watching his team run final diagnostics on the Nakamura flagship inverter. The same machine that had nearly destroyed his life now hummed with perfect efficiency. The same floor where Helena had cracked a mop across his face now held 36 workstations staffed by people no one else had believed in. "Temperature holding at optimal," Jennifer Hayes called from her station. 28 years old, former hardware store clerk, could diagnose circuit failures faster than engineers with PhDs. Marcus had found her selling electrical supplies in Columbus, recognized the way she listened to equipment the same way he did. "Frequency locked," Darnell Washington added. 44 years old, former truck driver. Studied engineering textbooks at rest stops for 15 years because no university would admit a black man from rural Mississippi with a GED and no money. Marcus had met him at a gas station outside Detroit, overheard him explaining voltage regulation to another driver, hired him on the spot. "Output exceeding projections by 12%, said Maria Santos, 51 years old, single mother of 3. Worked assembly lines for 20 years while taking night classes that never led anywhere because she couldn't afford the final semester. Marcus had read her application to the Thomas Webb Engineering Fund, the scholarship program he'd established with his first 3 paychecks, and promoted her to team lead within a month. None of them had degrees. None of them had credentials. None of them had ever been given a chance by anyone who mattered. Until now. Looking good people. Marcus walked between workstations, checking readings, offering suggestions, listening to the machines the way his father had taught him. "Jennifer, what's the harmonic on junction 7? 0.3 below baseline. Want me to adjust?" "Leave it. Sometimes a little variance keeps things interesting." Jennifer grinned. 6 months ago, she'd been selling light bulbs to contractors who called her sweetheart and asked if she could get a man to help them. Now she was troubleshooting systems that Stanford engineers had given up on. Mr. Webb, Marcus's assistant, a young man named David Chen, no relation to Eric, appeared at his elbow. "Doctor, Cho is on line 2, says it's urgent." Marcus felt his stomach tighten. In 6 months, he'd learned that urgent from Raymond Cho usually meant something he didn't want to hear. He stepped into his office, closed the door, picked up the phone. "Raymond, what's wrong?" Helena Drake was released from prison this morning. The words hit like a physical blow. Marcus sat down heavily in his chair. "That's not possible. She was sentenced to 30 months. She's only served 6. Early release, good behavior, cooperation with prosecutors." Cho's voice carried controlled anger. "Her lawyers filed motions I didn't see coming. She testified against 3 other executives involved in similar fraud schemes. The judge decided she'd served enough time." Marcus's hands were shaking. He pressed them flat against his desk. "Where is she now?" "Chicago. Staying with a cousin while she figures out her next steps." Cho paused. "She asked to see you?" "No." "I thought you'd say that." "The answer is no, Raymond. I don't want to see her. I don't want to talk to her. I don't want to be in the same city as her." "I understand. But there's something you should know." Another pause, longer this time. "She's been making calls, reaching out to old contacts, journalists, board members, people who still owe her favors." Marcus felt ice spreading through his chest. "She's planning something." "Possibly. Or she might just be trying to rebuild her network. Find work, move on with her life." Cho didn't sound convinced by his own words. "Either way, I wanted you to hear it from me first." "Thank you." "Marcus, Cho's voice softened. You've built something remarkable in the past 6 months. Whatever Helena is planning, don't let it destroy what you've created. I won't. He hung up. Sat in silence. Stared at the photograph of Sarah on his desk, a new frame, now something proper instead of the cheap plastic one from before. Helena was free. The woman who'd hit him with a mop handle, threatened his daughter, tried to send him to prison. She was walking the streets of Chicago, probably plotting revenge, definitely not reformed. His phone buzzed. Text from Lily. Dad, can we talk tonight? Something happened at school. Marcus's blood went cold. Are you okay? What happened? I'm fine. Just something weird. Can we video call around 8? Of course. I love you. Love you too, Dad. He forced himself to breathe. Lily was fine. She'd said she was fine. Whatever happened, it wasn't an emergency. But combined with the news about Helena, Marcus couldn't shake the feeling that something was coming. Something bad. The rest of the day passed in a blur. Meetings, diagnostics, a conference call with Nakamura Industries about the next phase of the contract. Marcus went through the motions, but his mind kept circling back to Helena, to Lily, to the past 6 months that had felt like rebuilding a life, and now felt like building a house of cards. At 7:45, he left the office. Drove home to the apartment he still hadn't upgraded, despite earning more money than he'd ever imagined. The place felt smaller now, not because of the salary, but because of perspective. He'd been invisible here, had spent 3 years hiding in these walls. Part of him wanted to move to find somewhere that didn't remind him of the worst years of his life. But another part of him wasn't ready. Sarah had never lived here, but her photograph had. Her memory had kept him company through the long nights. Moving felt like leaving her behind somehow, even though he knew that didn't make sense. At 8:02, his laptop chimed. Video call from Lily. Her face filled the screen. 20 years old now, she'd had a birthday last month, and Marcus had flown her home first class like he'd promised. She looked tired, worried. Nothing like the bright-eyed girl who'd been so proud of him 6 months ago. Hey, sweetheart, what's going on? Dad, I need to tell you something, and I need you to not freak out. His chest tightened. That's not a great opening. I know. I'm sorry. It's just... She took a breath. A woman came to my apartment today. Said she wanted to talk about you. Marcus's blood turned to ice. What woman? She said her name was Helena Drake. The world tilted. Marcus gripped the edge of his desk so hard his knuckles went white. She came to your apartment in person. She was waiting outside when I got home from class. Said she just wanted to talk. That she wasn't there to cause trouble. Lily's voice shook. Dad, I didn't let her in. I didn't invite her. She just showed up. What did she say? She said she wanted to apologize. That she'd done terrible things and she was trying to make amends. Lily wrapped her arms around herself. She said she knew I probably hated her, but she hoped I could give her a chance to explain. Marcus felt rage building in his chest. Hot. Volcanic. The kind of anger he hadn't felt since the night Helena had hit him. And what did you say? I told her to leave. I told her my father was a good man, and whatever she wanted, she could go to hell. Lily's chin lifted with defiance that reminded Marcus so much of Sarah it hurt. Then I went inside and locked the door. Good girl. But Dad... Lily hesitated. She started crying, right there on the sidewalk. Real tears, not fake ones. She kept saying she was sorry that she'd lost everything, that she just wanted a chance to make things right. Marcus closed his eyes. Helena Drake doesn't cry, Lily. Whatever you saw was manipulation. Are you sure? Because she looked broken. Like really broken. Like how you looked after Mom died. The comparison stabbed through Marcus's anger. He'd looked broken after Sarah died because he had been broken. Was it possible Helena was the same, that prison had actually changed her? No. He couldn't believe that. Wouldn't believe that. Helena Drake was a predator. Predators didn't change. They just learned new hunting techniques. Listen to me carefully. Marcus leaned toward the camera. I want you to call campus security. Tell them about Helena's visit. Ask them to increase patrols around your building. Dad, don't you think that's overreacting? No, I don't. His voice came out harder than he intended. Helena Drake threatened to destroy you 6 months ago. She said she'd have you investigated, expelled, your reputation ruined. Just because she's out of prison doesn't mean she's given up. But what if she really has changed? What if she really just wants to apologize? Then she can apologize to me, not to you. Marcus forced himself to breathe. You're not a chess piece, Lily. You're not leverage. You're my daughter, and I'm not going to let her use you to get to me. Lily was quiet for a long moment. When she spoke again, her voice was small. I'm scared, Dad. I know, sweetheart. I know. Marcus wished he could reach through the screen and hold her. But I'm not going to let anything happen to you, I promise. You always keep your promises. I try. They talked for another hour about nothing in particular. Classes. Her roommate's annoying boyfriend. A professor who actually recognized her talent. Normal things. Safe things. The kind of conversation they'd had before Helena Drake existed in their lives. When they hung up, Marcus sat in darkness, staring at Sarah's photograph. What do I do? He whispered. She won't stop. Even after everything, she won't stop. The photograph didn't answer. It never did. But somehow Marcus felt Sarah's presence anyway. The way she'd always known when he was about to make a bad decision. The way she'd talk him through his rage until he could think clearly again. What would Sarah say now? He knew the answer, even though he didn't want to hear it. Talk to her. Find out what she really wants. You can't protect Lily from a threat you don't understand. Marcus picked up his phone, pulled up Cho's number, typed a message. Tell Helena I'll meet her, tomorrow, noon, somewhere public. The response came in seconds. Are you sure? No. But I'm going to do it anyway. The coffee shop was crowded with the lunch rush. Marcus arrived at 11:45, claimed a table near the window, watched people move through ordinary lives that didn't involve megalomaniac CEOs or corporate conspiracy, or daughters being stalked by enemies. Helena walked in at exactly noon. She looked different. Older. Thinner. The designer suits were gone, replaced by simple jeans and a plain jacket that had seen better years. No makeup. No jewelry. No trace of the woman who'd commanded a billion-dollar empire with the kind of presence that made rooms fall silent. But her walk still carried purpose. Her eyes still held intelligence. Prison hadn't broken her, had changed her maybe, but broken was something different. She spotted Marcus. Walked toward him slowly, each step testing whether he'd stand up and leave. He stayed seated. Thank you for meeting me. Her voice came out quieter than he remembered. Raspier. Like she'd spent 6 months not talking. Sit down. She sat. Up close, Marcus could see lines around her eyes that hadn't been there before. Gray streaks in hair she'd always kept perfectly colored. The weight of consequences written on features that had spent 55 years hiding vulnerability. You look good, she said. Success agrees with you. What do you want, Helena? I came to apologize. You already apologized. In the boardroom, with cameras recording. That was forced. That was performance. She looked down at her hands. This is real. Marcus leaned back, crossed his arms. I'm listening. I've had 6 months to think about everything. About what I did to you, what I did to my company, what I did to my own life. Her voice cracked slightly. I told myself I was fighting for respect, for recognition, for everything men had tried to take from me. And maybe that was true at first. But somewhere along the way, I forgot why I was fighting. I just fought. Anyone who threatened me, anyone who challenged me, anyone who made me feel less powerful than I wanted to be. Marcus said nothing. You were right. What you said in my office that morning." Helena met his eyes. Tears glistened there, real or fake, he couldn't tell. "Fear makes you cruel. Cruelty makes you alone. I've been alone my entire career. I thought it was strength. Turns out it was just survival." "Why did you go to my daughter's apartment?" Helena flinched. "I shouldn't have done that. I know, I... She wrapped her hands around the coffee cup she hadn't touched. "I wanted to apologize to her, for threatening her, for trying to use her against you. You could have called me directly. You wouldn't have answered. So you went after Lily instead." Marcus's voice hardened. "You scared her, Helena. She called me terrified that you were starting something again." "I didn't mean to scare her. I just wanted..." Helena stopped, took a breath. "You're right. I did it wrong. I did everything wrong. That's what I'm trying to fix." Marcus studied her face, looking for the tells he'd learned to recognize over 30 years of reading people. The micro-expressions that revealed lies, the subtle shifts that meant manipulation. He saw exhaustion. He saw regret. He saw something that looked almost like surrender. But he also saw Helena Drake, the woman who'd built an empire on lies, the woman who'd smiled while destroying careers, the woman who'd hit him in the face and threatened to ruin his daughter's life. Could someone like that really change? "What do you want from me, Helena? Specifically, what are you hoping happens in this conversation?" She was quiet for a long moment. "I want to work again. Not at Drake Energy. I know that's impossible. But somewhere. Doing something that matters." Her voice dropped to barely above a whisper. "I applied to 47 jobs in the past 3 weeks. 47 rejections. Nobody will touch me. My name is poison." "So, you want me to give you a reference?" "No. I want you to give me a chance." She looked up at him with something raw in her eyes. "I've been reading about your engineering fund, the Thomas Webb program. How you find people who've been overlooked, give them opportunities they'd never get anywhere else." Marcus felt something cold spreading through his chest. "You want to apply to my scholarship program. I know how it sounds. I know I'm the last person who deserves..." "You're right, you are the last person. But I'm also exactly the kind of person you created that program for." Helena's voice gained strength. "Someone whose past has destroyed their future. Someone who can't get a second chance no matter how hard they try. Someone who has knowledge and skills that are being wasted because the world has decided they're not worth saving." Marcus laughed, harsh, bitter. "There's a difference, Helena. The people in my program were overlooked because they didn't have degrees or connections or the right background. You were overlooked because you're a convicted felon who defrauded the government and assaulted employees. I know the difference. I'm not asking you to ignore what I did." Helena's hands trembled against her coffee cup. "I'm asking you to consider that maybe I can become something other than what I was. And if I say no, then I walk away. I don't bother Lily again. I don't contact you again. I find some other way to rebuild my life, or I don't rebuild it at all." She straightened in her chair, some of the old steel returning to her spine. "I'm not here to threaten you, Marcus. I'm not here to manipulate you. I'm here because you're the only person I know who might actually believe in second chances." Marcus thought about his father. Thomas Webb. 35 years at General Electric, passed over for promotions by men with half his talent. He'd never gotten a second chance. Had died waiting for recognition that never came. He thought about Sarah, the way she'd believed everyone deserved redemption, even people who'd hurt her. The way she'd forgiven the insurance company that denied her claims, the hospital that sent bills while she was dying, the world that had taken everything from them. He thought about Lily, 20 years old, brilliant, fierce, watching her father to see what kind of man he was. What kind of man was he? The kind who held grudges, who believed people were defined by their worst moments, who thought some sins were unforgivable, or the kind who built programs for overlooked talent, who gave chances to people nobody else would hire, who believed that credentials mattered less than character, and character could change. I need to think about it. Helena nodded. Something like hope flickered across her face, quickly suppressed. Thank you. That's more than I deserve. Yes, it is. Marcus stood. Don't contact Lily again. If you want to reach me, go through Cho. Understand? I understand. He turned to leave. Stopped. Looked back. One more thing. If I find out this is some kind of scheme, if you're playing an angle I can't see, I will destroy you. Not like you tried to destroy me. Worse. I'll make sure every door in every industry stays closed forever. Do you understand that? Helena met his eyes. No flinching, no fear. I understand. Marcus walked out into the afternoon sun. His hands were shaking, his head was spinning. He'd just had a civil conversation with the woman who tried to ruin his life, and somehow he was the one who felt unsettled. His phone buzzed. Text from Jennifer Boss. We hit a snag with the Nakamura cooling system. Need your ears. Work. Familiar. Safe. Something he understood. On my way. He drove back to Drake Energy, still called that, even though Helena was gone. Cho had wanted to rename it, but Marcus had argued against it. The name was a reminder of what had happened, of what could happen again if they got careless. Jennifer met him at the door to the engineering center. The harmonic on Junction 7, the one you said to leave alone. She walked fast, talking faster. It's spreading, affecting the adjacent systems. Darnell thinks it's a cascade failure in progress. Marcus followed her to the workstation. Put his hands on the inverter housing. Closed his eyes, listened. There. The stutter he'd missed this morning. Worse now. Building toward something bad. It's not Junction 7, he said. It's Junction 5. The problem's propagating downstream, making 7 look like the source. How can you tell? Because Junction 7 sounds scared, Junction 5 sounds angry. He opened his eyes. My father used to say machines have emotions. Most people think that's crazy. But if you listen long enough, you start to understand what he meant. Jennifer nodded. Already moving to Junction 5. Marcus watched her work. Watched his whole team work, Jennifer and Darnell and Maria, and a dozen others. All of them overlooked all of them. Brilliant. All of them proving every day that talent existed in places most people never bothered to look. This was what he'd built. This was what mattered. Not revenge, not anger, not Helena Drake and her crimes and her tears and her requests for redemption. This. Right here, people doing work that mattered. Getting recognition they deserved. Becoming visible after years of being ignored. His phone buzzed again. Text from Lily. Dad, I've been thinking about what you said. You're right, she might just be manipulating us. But what if she's not? What if people really can change? Isn't that what you always taught me? Marcus read the message 3 times. His daughter, 20 years old, already wiser than he was in some ways. I don't know, sweetheart, I really don't know. That's okay, Dad, neither do I. But maybe that's the point. Maybe we figure it out together. Marcus smiled despite himself. Looked at Sarah's photograph on his desk. Our daughter is something else, he whispered. The photograph smiled back. Silent. Eternal. Still believing in him after all this time. Junction 5 chimed. Jennifer had found the problem. Fixed it. The inverter purred back to full harmony. Nice work, Marcus called across the room. That's why I hired you. Jennifer grinned. Because I listen to machines like a crazy person. Because you're not crazy, you're gifted, there's a difference. He watched his team celebrate another small victory. Watched the people he'd pulled from obscurity become exactly who they were meant to be. Whatever Helena Drake wanted, redemption, manipulation, something else entirely, Marcus would figure it out. He'd protect Lily, he'd protect his team, He'd protect everything he'd built. But maybe, just maybe, he'd also leave the door open. Because second chances were what he'd built his whole program on. And if he believed that overlooked mechanics and truck drivers and single mothers deserved redemption, could he really argue that a fallen CEO didn't? He didn't know the answer yet, but for the first time in 6 months, he was willing to consider the question. 18 months later, Marcus stood at a podium in Drake Energy's main auditorium, looking out at 500 faces staring back at him. Board members in the front row. Engineers and technicians filling the middle sections. Media cameras lining the walls. And in the very back, standing alone by the exit, Helena Drake. She'd come. He hadn't expected that, hadn't invited her specifically. But when he'd announced the creation of the Thomas Webb Institute for Engineering Excellence, she'd requested permission to attend. Cho had advised against it. Lily had said she didn't care either way. Marcus had said yes. He still wasn't sure why. 18 months ago, Marcus began, his voice carrying across the auditorium. I stood in this building as a janitor. Most of you didn't know my name. Some of you walked past me every day without ever seeing me. He paused. Let the weight of those words settle. Today, Drake Energy is establishing an institute that will ensure no one with talent goes unseen again. The screen behind him illuminated. The Thomas Webb Institute for Engineering Excellence. Mission statement. Budget allocation. $100 million over 5 years for scholarships, training programs, apprenticeships. This institute is named after my father, Thomas Webb, 35 years at General Electric, could diagnose any electrical problem by sound alone. Taught me everything I know about listening. Marcus's voice thickened. He'd practiced this speech 100 times. Still couldn't get through this part without feeling his throat close. My father never received a promotion, never got recognition, never got the respect his genius deserved because he didn't have a degree or connections or the right pedigree. He steadied himself. He died on a garage floor at 59, still working, still invisible, still waiting for someone to see what he was worth. This institute will prove that the world was wrong about him, and about everyone like him. Marcus explained the program. 4,000 applications. 60 fellows selected. Mechanics, truck drivers, factory workers, single mothers. People with passion for engineering and no pathway to prove it. People overlooked by every institution that claimed to value talent. The first class of the Thomas Webb Institute graduated 3 months ago. 57 fellows completed the program. 94% are now employed in engineering positions. Average starting salary, $78,000. He smiled. Not bad for people the world said weren't qualified. Applause rippled through the auditorium. Marcus let it wash over him. But I want to talk about one graduate in particular. Someone whose application was controversial. The room went quiet. In the back, Helena straightened. 18 months ago, this person was my enemy. They had hurt me, threatened my family, tried to destroy everything I'd built. Marcus met Helena's eyes across the distance. I had every reason to reject their application, every reason to say no, every reason to believe that some people don't deserve second chances. He paused. But that's not what this institute is about. The Thomas Webb Institute exists because I believe talent matters more than credentials. Because I believe people are more than their worst moments. Because I believe that someone who's been overlooked for whatever reason deserves a chance to prove who they really are. Helena's face had gone pale. She gripped the back of the chair in front of her. This person completed our program with the highest marks in their cohort. They now work for a small company in Cleveland designing systems for agricultural equipment. Not glamorous, not prestigious, but honest work that matters. Marcus took a breath. Helena Drake, would you please come up here? The auditorium exploded in whispers. Heads turned, cameras swiveled. Helena stood frozen in the back, looking like she wanted to bolt for the exit. But she didn't run. She walked forward each step, visible effort past 500 people who remembered what she'd done, past employees she'd terrorized, past board members she'd lied to, past cameras that would broadcast this moment to millions. She climbed the stairs to the stage, stood next to Marcus. Up close, he could see she was shaking. 18 months ago, Marcus said into the microphone, Helena Drake was my enemy. Today she's proof that this program works, that people can change, that second chances matter. He turned to her. Helena, would you like to say anything? She stared at the microphone like it might bite her. Her mouth opened, closed, opened again. I don't deserve this. Her voice came out barely above a whisper. I don't deserve to be standing here. I don't deserve his forgiveness or his generosity or any of the chances he's given me. She turned to face the audience. 18 months ago, I hit this man with a mop handle in front of 300 employees. I threatened to destroy his daughter. I tried to send him to prison for exposing my crimes. Her voice cracked. I was everything you probably think I still am. Cruel, manipulative, incapable of seeing anyone as anything other than a tool to be used. Silence pressed against the auditorium walls. But Marcus Webb saw something else. I don't know what. I don't know why. I've asked him 100 times, and he just says that complicated problems don't always need complicated answers. She smiled through tears. I think that's his way of saying he doesn't know either. Scattered laughter eased the tension slightly. What I do know is this: the Thomas Webb Institute gave me something I'd never had in 55 years of life, a chance to become someone different, not better than everyone else, just better than I was. She turned to Marcus. I can never undo what I did to you. I can never give back the 3 years you spent invisible in this building. I can never erase the pain I caused your daughter, or your employees, or anyone else who crossed my path. Her voice dropped to something private, something not meant for microphones but captured anyway. But I can spend the rest of my life trying to be worthy of the chance you gave me. And I will. I promise you that. Marcus extended his hand. Helena stared at it. For a long moment, nothing moved. Then she took it, shook it. Her grip was firm despite her trembling. The applause started slowly. 1 person, then 10, then 100. Then the entire auditorium was on its feet, clapping for a reformed villain and the man who'd believed she could change. Marcus looked out at the crowd. At Jennifer and Darnell and Maria, his original team applauding in the front row. At Eric Lawson, who'd left Drake Energy 6 months ago to start his own consulting firm, free from the debts that had enslaved him. At Dr. Raymond Cho, 75, now still sharp, still watching over everything Marcus built. And in the second row, next to Cho, sat Lily. 21 years old, graduated with honors from University of Illinois 3 months ago. Already working as a junior engineer at Drake Energy, not because of her father's name, but because she'd applied through the normal channels and beaten out 200 other candidates. She was crying, smiling through tears, exactly like her mother used to do. Marcus felt Sarah's presence in that moment. Not ghostly or supernatural. Just there. The way love didn't disappear when someone died. The way promises kept echoing across years and miles and all the distance between the living and the gone. I kept them, Sarah. All 3 promises. I didn't give up. I remembered who I was. I found my way back. And I built something that will outlive us all. The ceremony ended. The crowd dispersed. Media conducted interviews. Board members shook hands and talked about quarterly projections. Marcus slipped away. He found himself in the R&D lab on the 38th floor. The same floor where Helena had cracked a mop across his face 2 years ago. The same room where he'd fixed the inverter that changed his life. The machine still hummed in the corner, still running perfectly. 2 years without a single failure. Marcus placed his hand on its housing, felt the vibration through his palm. Hey, old friend. The inverter didn't answer. Machines didn't talk no matter what his father had believed. But they listened. They always listened. "Dad would have loved this," Marcus said quietly. He spent 35 years waiting for someone to notice him, waiting for recognition that never came. He closed his eyes. "I hope wherever he is he knows. I hope he can see what we built in his name." "He knows." Marcus turned. Lily stood in the doorway. "How long have you been there?" "Long enough." She walked toward him. "I used to think it was creepy when you talked to machines. Now I get it." "Your grandfather taught me, said every machine has a heartbeat." "I know. You've told me 1,000 times." Lily stood next to him, placed her own hand on the inverter housing. "I'm starting to hear it too. The rhythms, the patterns, the way things sound different when something's wrong." Marcus smiled. "You're more like him than you know." "I'm more like you, Dad. And you're more like him." She leaned her head against his shoulder. "That's how legacy works. It passes down whether we want it to or not." They stood in silence. Father and daughter. 2 generations of web engineers. The 3rd generation already forming in the students who'd graduate from the institute next year. "I'm proud of you," Marcus said finally. "Not because you got the job, not because you graduated with honors, because you believed in me when no one else did. That's not true. Cho believed in you. Eric believed in you eventually. Your whole team believes in you. They believed in what I could do. You believed in who I was." Marcus turned to face her. "There's a difference, Lily. A big one." She looked up at him with Sarah's eyes, the same warmth, the same wisdom beyond her years. "Mom believed in you too. She never stopped believing. Even at the end when everything hurt, she used to tell me that you were going to do something important someday, that you had gifts the world hadn't discovered yet." Marcus felt tears threatening. Didn't fight them. "She made me promise 3 things. Before she died. Don't give up. Remember who I am. Find my way back." "You kept all 3. I kept all 3. He pulled his daughter into a hug, held her tight. "But I couldn't have done it without you. You know that, right? You're the reason I got out of bed those first 3 years. The reason I took the janitor job. The reason I didn't just give up." "I know, Dad." Lily hugged him back. "I've always known." They held each other in the hum of the inverter in the building that had witnessed Marcus's destruction and resurrection in the legacy they were building together. "So what's next?" Lily asked finally. "You've got the institute. You've got the team. Helena's redeemed. What's left?" Marcus released her, stepped back, looked around the lab that had changed everything. "I've been thinking about that. Actually, I've been thinking about it a lot. And I want to open a garage." Lily blinked. "A garage?" "Not just any garage. A free diagnostic clinic. Back in Detroit where I grew up. Where my father worked on cars in our driveway and taught me how to listen." Marcus's voice gained strength as the vision crystallized. "A place where anyone can bring their car, their equipment, anything that's broken. And we fix it. Or we teach them how to fix it. Free." Dad, that's amazing. But what about Drake Energy? What about everything you've built here?" "I'll transition out over the next year. Jennifer can take over as chief engineer, she's ready. Darnell can lead the diagnostic team. The institute will keep running with or without me." Marcus shrugged. "This place doesn't need me anymore. But Detroit does. All those people who can't afford mechanics. All those kids who have talent but nowhere to learn. They need someone to show them what I showed the people here." Lily stared at him. "You're really going to walk away from a $170,000 salary to open a free garage in Detroit?" "I'm going to walk away from a job to start a mission." Marcus smiled. "There's a difference. Mom would love this." "I know. That's partly why I'm doing it." He looked at Sarah's photograph on his desk. She always said the measure of a life isn't what you accumulate, it's what you give away. The Thomas Webb Memorial Garage opened on a Saturday morning in September, 1 year later. Nothing fancy, A simple workshop in an old Detroit neighborhood that had seen better decades. Tools Marcus had collected over a lifetime. A sign above the door that read, "Free engine diagnostics for anyone who needs it." By noon, a line stretched around the block. Single mothers with cars that wouldn't start. Elderly men with trucks that had served them faithfully for 40 years. Teenagers with first vehicles held together by hope and duct tape. People who couldn't afford mechanics and didn't understand why their engines had stopped working. Marcus helped them all. Showed young people how to listen to their engines. Taught single parents basic maintenance that could save hundreds in repair bills. Passed on his father's wisdom to anyone willing to learn. The same wisdom Thomas Webb had shared in a different garage 40 years earlier. Every machine has a heartbeat. You just have to know how to listen. A young woman walked in one afternoon carrying an engine part frustration written across her face. "I can't figure out what's wrong with it. I've tried everything." Marcus took the part, examined it with hands that had fixed 10,000 problems. Within seconds, he identified the issue, a hairline crack invisible to the untrained eye. "See this?" He pointed to the crack. "That's your problem. Easy fix if you know what you're looking for." The woman stared. "How did you find that so fast?" "My father taught me a long time ago. He said that machines speak to those who know how to listen." Marcus handed back the part. "Now I'm teaching you so you can teach someone else. That's how knowledge survives." The woman left with her repaired part and new understanding. Marcus watched her go. Behind him, 3 photographs hung on the workshop wall. Thomas Webb, in his General Electric uniform, looking proud and tired after a long shift. Sarah on their wedding day laughing at something only she remembered. And a newspaper clipping from 2 years ago showing a janitor who'd shocked the world. Marcus looked at those photographs every day. They reminded him where he'd come from and why the journey mattered. Late one evening, as Marcus was closing up, a familiar figure appeared in the doorway. Helena Drake. She looked stronger than the last time he'd seen her. More confident. The kind of confidence that came from earning your place through work, not intimidation. "I heard about this place." She stepped inside. "Wanted to see it for myself." Marcus wiped his hands on a rag. "What do you think?" "I think your father would be proud." She picked up a wrench from the workbench, tested its weight. "I think Sarah would be proud too." "Did you drive all the way from Cleveland to tell me that—" "I drove all the way from Cleveland because I got promoted." Helena set down the wrench. "They're letting me lead a project. Small team, agricultural systems, nothing glamorous. But honest work. Honest work." She smiled, something genuine in it now. "I never understood what that meant before. Honest work. I thought work was just a means to an end. Power, money, control. I didn't realize it could be satisfying, just on its own. My father worked 35 years at GE, never promoted, never recognized, and he loved every minute of it." Marcus leaned against his workbench. "I used to think that was sad. Now I understand. The work was enough. Being good at something was enough. He didn't need applause. I needed applause. I needed everyone to see how special I was." Helena's voice dropped. "Turns out the people who need applause the most are usually the ones who deserve it least." They stood in comfortable silence. 2 people who'd been enemies, then cautious allies, now something closer to understanding. "Thank you," Helena said finally. "For everything, the program, the second chance, this." She gestured around the garage. "I didn't deserve any of it." "Nobody deserves anything, Helena. That's what I've learned. Deserving is a myth we tell ourselves to feel better about good luck or justify bad treatment." Marcus met her eyes. "What matters is what you do with what you're given. You could have used your second chance to scheme your way back to power. Instead, you're designing agricultural equipment in Cleveland and driving 4 hours to see an old garage in Detroit. Are you saying I've changed? I'm saying you're changing. It's a process, not an event." He almost smiled. Ask me again in 10 years. Helena laughed. The sound surprised them both. I should go. Long drive back. She walked to the door, stopped with her hand on the frame. Marcus, one question. Go ahead. That night, in the boardroom, when I hit you with the mop and challenged you to fix the inverter. She turned back. Why did you say yes? You could have backed down, could have apologized, could have stayed invisible. Why did you fight? Marcus thought about the question. He'd asked himself the same thing 1,000 times. Because my wife asked me to, he said finally. 3 promises. Don't give up. Remember who I am. Find my way back. He looked at Sarah's photograph. I'd already broken those promises for 3 years. I couldn't break them anymore. Helena nodded slowly. She must have been something special. She was everything. Helena left. The garage fell quiet, except for the tick of cooling engines and the hum of overhead lights. Marcus walked to Sarah's photograph, touched the frame gently. I built it, he whispered. Everything you believed I could do. I built it. The photograph didn't answer. Never did. But Marcus felt her anyway. The warmth of her hand in his, the certainty of her faith. The love that hadn't dimmed in 5 years of absence. Some people changed the world with armies. Some with money. Some with power. Marcus Webb changed it by listening, by believing, by giving second chances to people the world had given up on. His father had taught him that machines had heartbeats. Sarah had taught him that people did too. And if you listened carefully enough, really listened, you could hear what they needed to come back to life. The next morning, Marcus opened the garage at 7. The line was already forming. A young man stood at the front, maybe 19, nervous energy radiating off him like heat. Are you Mr. Webb? The one from the videos? Just Marcus. I watched what you did. At Drake Energy, standing up to that woman. Fixing that machine when everyone said you couldn't. The young man's voice shook with emotion. I'm like you. I mean, I want to be. I work at a tire shop, but I know I'm meant for more. I just don't know how to get there. Marcus looked at this kid, saw himself at 19, saw his father at 19, saw all the invisible people who would never get chances they deserved unless someone opened a door. What's your name? Derek. Derek Thompson. Derek, do you know how to listen? Listen to what? Marcus smiled, placed a wrench in Derek's hand, led him to an engine on the workbench. Put your hands here, close your eyes, and just listen. Derek obeyed, his face scrunched with concentration. I don't hear anything. Yes, you do. You're just not paying attention yet. Marcus stood beside him. Every machine has a heartbeat. Most people hear noise. But if you listen, really listen, the machine will tell you exactly what's wrong. Derek concentrated harder. 1 minute, 2 minutes. His expression shifted. Wait, there's like a stutter. Every few seconds. Is that? That's exactly right. Marcus felt something swell in his chest. Pride, hope, the certainty that everything he'd built was going to outlive him. Now tell me what you think is causing it. Derek opened his eyes. They were bright with excitement. I don't know yet, but I want to learn. Then you've already started. Marcus Webb spent the next 6 hours teaching Derek Thompson everything he knew about engines. The same way his father had taught him. The same way he'd taught Jennifer and Darnell and Maria and the 60 fellows of the Thomas Webb Institute. Knowledge surviving through transfer. Legacy building through inheritance. The invisible becoming visible, one person at a time. At the end of the day, as the sun set over Detroit and the last customer drove away with a repaired engine, Marcus sat alone in his garage. He thought about Thomas Webb, who'd died unrecognized, but whose name now graced an institute that would change thousands of lives. He thought about Sarah Webb, who'd believed in him when he couldn't believe in himself, whose promises had pulled him from invisibility. He thought about Lily Webb, who'd inherited her grandfather's gift and her mother's faith and her father's stubbornness, who would carry the family forward into generations Marcus would never see. He thought about Helena Drake, who'd been his enemy and was becoming something else, proof that people could change, that cruelty wasn't destiny, that second chances sometimes worked. And he thought about himself. Marcus Webb, 54 years old, former janitor, current teacher, forever the son of a man who'd listened to machines and the husband of a woman who'd believed in miracles. The measure of a life isn't what you accumulate, it's what you give away. Marcus had given away his knowledge, his time, his faith in human potential, and in return he'd received something money couldn't buy and power couldn't take. He'd received purpose. The garage door rattled in the evening breeze. The photographs watched from the wall. Thomas, Sarah, the newspaper clipping that had started everything. Marcus Webb smiled, turned off the lights, and went home to the life he'd built, from nothing but promises and persistence. He'd spent 3 years invisible. Now his legacy would be seen forever. And that, more than money, more than revenge, more than anything Helena Drake had tried to take from him, was the victory that mattered. Not to be remembered, but to have mattered. Not to live forever, but to have helped others live better. Marcus Webb had found his way back, and he'd brought an army of invisible people with him into the light.